So today we're going to be talking about what we call the perfect appointment. Following a sales process is absolutely critical when we're on face-to-face seller appointments. So some of you are newer to Cameron and you've never been in real estate before, and some of you have been in real estate before at other companies. The sales process and the perfect appointment shows you how to take an acquisition appointment where you have a cash offer in your hand and convert it to either an acquisition or a listing. Now, we can't force you to follow a sales process, right? We're not going to be on every single face-to-face appointment with you. You can try to do things the way you want to do them, but I can guarantee you this. If you follow the sales process, your conversion will go up dramatically from just quote-unquote winging it. So we're going to walk you through today everything from literally confirming the appointment to driving over there, what do you say when you meet the person, all the way to the follow-up. So why don't we jump right in, right out of the gate with this?
Right out of the gate. All right. So the first thing we're going to go over are just some of the basics, right? Sales 101. We're going to go over some things that some people in here are going to say, I always do that. I always done that. But there are going to be a lot of people in here that when you get to the appointment, you realize you forgot it, you don't think about it, you overlooked it. So just to start off, did you request a CMA with Ryan? I mean, right? Come on. Did you even request it? How many times have you been on an appointment, you didn't get the CMA yet, you were late to request it, you didn't request it right when you were on Mojo, right? You put them in your fob and you just didn't do it. And next thing you know, your CMA is delayed, and now you're out on the appointment. One day too quick, and now you just don't have it. Now, not having the CMA isn't the end of the world because you're responsible for always running your own numbers, going in MLS, and of course, doing your own kind of like mini CMA. So there's no excuse, but it's nice to have it, right? Having that CMA is a really nice tool. You want to have it because it has a lot of the numbers, especially his cash offer. It has the 5-year street scene. There's a lot of good in that CMA.
But you mentioned the mini CMA, and I think that's really important for everyone to understand. The CMAs that we do are reviewed for acquisition purposes only. When I put my number in there, when I look at the CMA, I'm not reviewing it for retail. We are making the assumption that everyone here is doing their own analysis on the retail number. And the market in Boston has changed so quickly. It is not uncommon at all for our retail numbers on those CMAs to be off $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And if you have an agent, even a local agent that's going out, and they know that number perfectly, and you're just using our CMA number, you could easily get yourself into trouble, right?
Very easily. So it's always great. And if you have ever come to an appointment with me, you're going to know that I'm there early. I have MLS on my iPad. I have everything that's sold on that street in the last 5 years, regardless of what Ryan CMA has. Anything that's more recent, up to date, everything. So all the numbers I'm trying to review, I'm trying to see, I'm trying to get a good feel because just going off that CMA, you're putting a lot of faith and a lot of trust into that CMA. So you always want to have your own personal reference to go by so that you actually feel more confident and you can actually trust the numbers that you're presenting to the seller.
And there are 4 personality types, and this isn't going to be a disc class or anything like that, but one of those personality types will absolutely not work with you if you don't know those numbers backwards and forwards. So automatically, if you go out and you meet with that specific personality type, which is the C personality, and you don't know your numbers, you just went from whatever the normal conversion is to 0, right? And they're going to grill you. Those people are going to grill you. They're going to say, well, what did this person's house sell for? What did that person's house sell for? And they're going to have done their research before you even get out there. So if you show up with our CMA and you're unprepared, for those specific people, you're not even going to have a shot.
No, not at all. You ever get to an appointment and someone says, oh, this house sold right down the street. Do you know how much that sold for? And you're sitting there like, oh, man, I should have looked that up. I should have looked that up, or how did I miss that, right? Or you were in MLS, you were looking, you did a little bit of research, but you just missed that house.
And for that personality profile, right immediately in their head, they're like, this person doesn't know what they're talking about.
Exactly.
Whether you can do everything else perfectly does not matter. You're out at that point.
Yep. So, after you get the appointment on Mojo, and you have it set. This is a debated topic. To confirm, not to confirm, right? I mean, are we calling for the the possibility that they may cancel on us? You're hoping that they're still going to be home. So some people in this room, I bet it's split down the middle. I always like to confirm my appointments, just because usually I've probably priorly talked to them, or it's a way for me to build a little bit more rapport before the appointment, because you want to go into the appointment, as well suited as you can. So some people don't like to confirm. They're afraid that they're going to get the cancellation call, like, oh, you know what, I changed, or this or that came up. But wouldn't you want to know that was going to come up before you make the trek out there? Especially when, gas isn't cheap and you're driving an hour away and it's an hour to an hour from, or maybe you're traveling on a Friday afternoon. Oh my God, I hate Friday afternoon appointments. Like, especially in and out of the city. Like, it's like 3 hours just to get to and from. And so on these long treks, you definitely I would want to confirm. I would expect you to confirm, just for the sheer fact that it's going to save you time. And time is your most valuable asset that you have in this business, and you don't want to waste it, especially when you could have been doing 10 other things. You could have been following up. You could have been, on another appointment. You could have went on another appointment with somebody else. There's so many other things you could have done with your time besides sit in traffic for no reason.
So regardless of whether you confirm or you don't confirm, you always want to show up, right? The only time you don't want to show up is when they tell you not to show up, okay? There are many, many instances, and I don't really have the reasons behind them, that a seller won't pick up the phone, and then you don't show up, and then they call the office and they say, I had an appointment with this person at this time, right? So you always want to show up. We only get so many opportunities to go on face-to-face seller appointments each and every week. Unless you have 50 appointments a week, which I know no one in this room has, you want to show up at each and every seller appointment. It took you a lot of time to get that seller appointment. If you're spending your time, it took us a lot of money. And the other thing about showing up and them not being there is that automatically creates a desire for that person to work with you. If you showed up their house and they've forgotten about it, you're actually going to be in better standing with them than if everything went the right way. Because at that point now they're going to feel obligated to work with you. So it's a no-brainer, show up each and every time. If you are going to confirm, you want to use what we call an upfront contract. We want to make sure that the seller knows what's going to happen on those appointments. We want to make sure, because of the fact that a lot of these are going to be cold appointments, that they feel really comfortable. So you want to do a few things. Number one, if you are going to confirm, obviously you're going to tell them when the appointment is. The second thing that you're going to want to do is tell them how long it's going to be for, right? Because how often have you showed up at a seller appointment and they think it's going to be a 5-minute appointment and you think it's going to be an hour appointment? Or you go there and you think it's a 5-minute appointment and they want to have an hour appointment. So you want to make sure that you kind of set the guidelines before. That does two things. It'll make sure that they block off the appropriate amount of time, number one. And number two, it'll also make them feel more comfortable knowing what's going to happen. So you're telling them the time. You're also telling them what's going to happen on the appointment, right? So I'm going to come out, I'm going to walk through the appointment, we're going to sit back down at the table, and we're going to hopefully come to an agreement on the number that I can offer you, right? So we're always going out there with a cash offer. And then the third, which is the most important thing, is you're giving them what the acceptable outcomes of the appointment are, right? And you want to take the pressure off of them totally, because the average seller doesn't like salespeople. Everybody has had the instance where they felt pressured by a salesperson. You want to take that pressure off. So you want to say something along the lines of, we're going to try to get to a number if we can. If for whatever reason the number that we can offer doesn't work for you, are you okay telling me no? Because we know we can't buy every property, and they're always going to say yes. And then after that, you want to follow up with, and if that number does work for you, are you able to make a decision? Okay? So you want to make sure that they've committed to making a decision. And then what happens at that point sometimes is they'll then tell you about a second decision maker or a reason why they can't make a decision. We want to know that information going up front. Because the worst thing you can do is have an unbelievable appointment and then realize that the decision maker isn't even there. Okay, so that's what you want to do when you are confirming the appointment. So how long is it going to take? What time is it? What are you going to do while you're on the appointment? We're going to walk around. We're going to look through the house. We're going to go back to the kitchen table. You always want to make sure that they know that it's not just a walkthrough and you're going to be out of the door. So that's the use of an upfront contract. Now, what do you do? So you've run the CMA, you've done the upfront contract, now you're driving there.
So now I'm driving there, okay, at the speed limit, okay? I'm not, all right, because I take my time, all right? And, you know, the one thing that, you know, you got to do in your research is figure out the window, right? That's like an anchor of our pitch, isn't it? You know, the window, the investor window or the retail window, you know, which way are we going with this, right? So the pitch is essential. You have to explain both sides. And the reason we explain both sides, I'll touch on a little bit more when we get into value, is that, you know, you have to be prepared. So when you walk into this house and you give the investor window, okay, well, you're giving it because, number one, you don't want to attach yourself to that number, okay? That's just an absolute death warrant. So when you attach yourself to a number, now it's just going to follow you and it's going to be used against you in negotiations between the seller and somebody else. So you always want to give that range to get a feel. And then you figure that out from Tom CMA. If you don't have Tom CMA with his offer number to actually, because if you have the CMA, that window's created for you. You just kind of put a box around his number.
So if my offer is $250, what would the window be?
Probably $230 to $260. Somewhere right in there. You want to put Tom's offer in the 75 percentile or higher of the window. That way we seem like we're coming in at the top of the range. Okay? And there's always a slight chance that depending on the property or the condition or anything like what's going on with it will, you know, Tom may have a little room to come up, but most people are going to be in this window anyways. And so it's worked a ton for me. I've gone out there and given the window so many times, and I'm telling you, spot on. I just closed an acquisition in Gloucester because of the window. I nailed the window so hard on this guy, okay, he couldn't believe it, all right? He was like, yeah, everybody came in this window. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, that's why I told you. And the only thing, and then people may ask you, like, well, why is everyone in this window, right? Why is everyone in this box? Well, everyone's looking at the same comps, everyone's analyzing the same data, and everyone's going to vary based on, like, your renovation costs. That's the only real thing that'll go into it. The retail window. So looking at the comps, looking at the 5-year street scene, looking at what, you know, everyone is looking at on the market is going to give you a great idea of the retail window. So you have to have the retail window ready to go. You have to know what homes are selling for, what they're on the market for, what the competition is. So in your pre-prep, when you're at the appointment, when I'm reviewing it the night before or in the car before I go in, I'm always looking to have my ranges ready to go. Because having your ranges ready to go is like one of the core elements that's starting our pitch. It's getting our groundwork laid for the sale that's about to come. Showing up 15 minutes early, I'm always trying to show up 15 minutes early or more, just so I can really get a good feel. If you are on time, you are late. Okay? You cannot be on time for an appointment. You are either early or you are late. Okay? That's just how it goes. Because if you're showing up right on the spot, if you're grabbing your bag, looking for your pen, checking for your phone, like what's going on here, and you're running out of the car to get up to the house, you haven't slowed down for a second to think about anything. You're rushing into this appointment, you're going in guns blazing, and you need to go in, you need to relax, you need to take a breath, feel confident in your numbers, be confident in your information, and be ready mentally to deliver this, okay? Because you can't just rush it.
Another thing with that, right, going back to the personality profiles, you're late, that personality profile, 100% not going to work with you, right? Because they're going to say, he's late to this. No way he's going to show up on time for my open house. No way he's going to do this. No way he's going to do that, right? So it's really important to understand how different people think. And now I've got a different personality profile. I might think, oh, it's not a big deal to show up late. But you don't know who's on the other end of that door, right? So some people you can kind of recover from. Some people you can't. You never want to take that risk.
Yeah, another reason to really sit before the appointment in your car and just kind of turn the radio off and get ready is because you want to be aware of the sales process, okay? You want to think, okay, what am I going to open with, okay? What are my qualifying questions? Do I have them ready to go? Are they in my folder? Have I prepared? Okay, be aware, take a deep breath. Remember, tie down people, get people to say yes. rephrase your questions, okay? Get this in, absorb it, review it, go over it, and just think about it, because when you calm down and you think about the sales process, the biggest part of following the sales process and learning it and practicing it is being aware of it. You have to understand that there are pieces in place. You have to look at them. You have to observe them and just take the time to reflect on them before you just run into an appointment, because otherwise you're going to run in, and then once you're in that house, ding ding, it's on. So, there's no time to sit back and think about what you wanted to say or what you wanted to do. It's on at that point. So before you cross the threshold, make sure that you prepare yourself as much as you possibly can.
When you're driving, that's a perfect opportunity. A lot of times we have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes even longer to get to that appointment. That's the perfect time to role play with yourself in the car, right? Review your pitch in your mind, but speak it while you're driving. So if I'm going to present, if I'm going to really do anything, I'm going to do it, a mock one in my car for, the first 20 out of the 30 minutes, and maybe the last 10 minutes I'll put the radio on just to kind of get amped up. I got to get my energy up when I'm selling anything. That's how I would do it personally.
Yep. So, another stupid simple thing, right? Your device is charged, right? I mean, how many people's phones are almost dead right now? And it's 10:30 in the morning, right? Right? Have your phone charged, right? Have your tablets charged. Have chargers in the car. Get organized. It sounds something so simple, but all of a sudden, has anyone ever in here showed up to an appointment and you go to pull up the CMA or something, and your phone, the red light's on your battery, and you're like, oh my God, I got 4%. I need the CMA. If you need to pull something up in that appointment to show them, because sometimes you have to show them, the competition, or show them, and your tablet's dead in the car, you just lost a huge portion of your pitch and building your value just because you didn't charge something up. It's very simple, but don't overlook it. Let's see. Yeah, and if you have a tablet like I do, you want to get your websites ready to go. So on my tablet, when I walk in, if I want to show them MLS, I'm just hitting the Chrome button, and all my websites are coming up. I have MLS loaded. I have Dropbox, the CMAs. I have everything ready to go all the way up. I'm not logging in. I'm not typing my username and password. Oh, I forgot my password at MLS, and I got to reset it. I mean, you got to have dot loop ready to go, because sometimes, this is another one, make sure you have a pen and paperwork. I mean, is this like, how many times you show up, you don't have the paperwork, right? I mean, that's the cardinal sin. But, make sure, how many times, and I'm not going to lie, this has happened to me. You go to an appointment, you close the deal, you're ready to sign, and you ask the seller for the pen. Okay, right? I have done that. I've actually done it like twice now. Okay, where I'm just like,
I think the thing with all this, when we talk about the perfect appointment, I think everyone can agree. We've all done a lot of these things, myself included, right? So it's about getting to as close to perfection on each and every one of these appointments as we possibly can, right? That's the goal, right? Not to say that we do it perfect on, in any way, but the closer you can get to perfect, the closer you're going to get to a high conversion percentage. And if you miss things along the way, right, any one of these things that you miss could drop your conversion from 50% to 10%. So just keep that in mind.
Easy, and the leads that we get in Cameron, whether you got it from Mojo or it was assigned to you, it's always good to go back in and review the FUB notes prior to going in, because there may be information in there from another agent or from, Barbara K or whatever, she's always leaving her comments on there. That, what if there was, a conversation? What if there were Riley notes? What if there was a message down there, way down there? Maybe this is a lead that's been getting worked for 6 months or a year, and it's been passed from agent to agent to agent. You want to know if there's something in there. Just review it. There may be nothing, but there may be something, which is more important. And cover your ground. Go in there. Look at the notes. Make sure there's not something in there that you're missing that could help you with this. Maybe they talked to someone earlier and they said, oh, someone's sick and we're waiting for this or we're waiting for that, and just be armed with it. Be ready for it. I always like to drive around the neighborhood before I get in there. I'll always pass the house on my first drive-by, go down some side streets, and on my drive-in, I'm always looking for homes for sale, looking for those for sale signs, because maybe it's a home that I didn't see on MLS. Maybe it's something, so I'll get the home number, the street, I'll stop, I'll look at the address, and then I'll pull that up and say, oh, on my way in, I saw this house for sale 2 streets over. I pulled it up. Here's the information. That makes you look like you're on top of your stuff. I just drove in, pulled it up. I have all the info on the spot. People love that. It's a great thing to do. And so always drive by, do it. Now, at this point, hopefully you got out of your car. Okay? All right, we are out of the car at this point. Okay? There's a lot that goes into the pre-prep, right? You haven't even got out of your car, and this is what we're supposed to do. So now we get into what we call the greet. Okay? And a lot of people think, oh, the greet is, saying hello. Well, it can be to some people, and that's probably some people's greets. But the greet is an in-depth and it's a complex process to getting to know your person, breaking the ice. The greet is your first impression, okay? And first impressions are the most important. So, like you said, being on time, having your windows, having the range, making sure everything's perfect, makes the greet more successful in the end. Are you early or are you late? We already talked about that. You're not on time. You're either one or the other. Are you dressed appropriately? Okay. Are you in jeans and a sweatshirt? Are you wearing sneakers? You don't have to wear a suit every day. I can attest to that. I think this is the first one, I put on in a while, but.
But that's another personality profile thing, right? So, some personalities don't care about that, and some do. Some will judge you almost entirely on your appearance, okay? So you've just got to keep that in mind. And again, if you show up looking the wrong way for that particular person, you're out, right? The C personality, you show up, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know your numbers, you're out. They don't think you know what you're talking about, okay? The I personality, who cares about image? You don't show up, you don't look the right way. They're not good at their job, right? Automatically, and you're out at that point. I mean, they may still talk to you, but you're out in their head at that point.
Checked out completely. When you're walking up to the house, is there vinyl? Can you see the roof? How's the condition outside? Is there off-street parking? Is there on-street parking? Right. So is there a fenced-in yard? Is it on a postage stamp? What's going on here? I mean, are there red flags? Because you're going in to present, the benefits of selling to an investor. And from the investor side, you want to be looking for red flags. You want to be looking for things that you can either add value or devalue on the property on your way in. Don't just walk up to the house and then not even know what color the house was when you walked into it. Like, slow down. Like, look at what you're doing. Look to the house as you're walking up. Is there paint chipping? Is there the gutters falling down? Is there obvious damage from this or from that? You want to pay attention really closely and observe all these things, because it's going to help you in the end when you're talking to the seller about the condition of their house. It's not all about the inside of the house. The outside counts as well. It's all, the outside is not part of the house.
I want to point out, though, you never want to get negative about the condition of somebody's house, right? A lot of these people, you're going out there, their properties might be in bad condition. If they're in bad condition, in many cases, they already know that, and they already feel bad about that, right? So when I go in and I see something bad, sometimes the seller will actually point it out. They'll say, oh my God, this is so horrible. And I'll say, that's what we do every day. This is nothing. I've done houses that are, this is nothing, right? So you want to make them feel comfortable because they're embarrassed, right? So you actually need to get them on your side. The biggest mistake that I see a lot of investors make when they go out on these face-to-face appointments is they try to use that as a negotiation tool. And what ends up happening is, although you're pointing out things that are bad with the property and the seller may be in agreement, you've lost them on the emotional level, and then they don't want to work with you, right? So you always want to be on their side, right? We're in this together. We're going to help you. We're going to find a solution for you, regardless of whether I buy it or somebody else buys it.
Exactly. So when you're greeting someone and you're walking in, like I said, the key to the sales process is being aware, okay? So when you walk up and you ring the doorbell, and someone answers the door, are you smiling? Right? Are you aware? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about the way you're looking at that? You open the door think about opening the door to a random doorbell at your house. You open it up, and someone's sitting there with this dumb look on their face. You're like, who is this guy? Who is? You know what I mean? Oh, now I remember. Now I remember we had an appointment, right? But if you're sitting there and you're smiling and like you're ready to go, and you already get that feeling, you're giving off that upbeat, I'm ready, I'm here, I'm smiling, I'm friendly, you have that confidence about you, you've studied your numbers, you're feeling good. When someone's feeling good and smiling, and they open that door and see you right sitting there, dressed appropriately, that gives them a good feel. So these are all things that people overlook sometimes. Are you making eye contact? You know, sometimes I'm guilty of this too. Like I'll be talking to someone, and I'll look off to here, and I'll come back. But when you're talking to a seller, be aware of your eye contact. You know, when you first see them, when you first open the door, you know, be looking at them, be smiling. You know, be ready to shake their hand, be ready to thank them for their time. Have a business card ready to go. You know, I mean, you should be given a business card as comfort. You know, and so that people know that you're there for you know, for business. And it's just like, you know, these are all things. Does everyone do all that at every appointment they go to? Probably not.
Ultimately, these people are going to have their guard up, right? They're looking for reasons to not work with you. They really are. Don't give them any of those reasons, right? Give them a reason to want to be around you.
Yep. So right away, you want to make small talk. I mean, it's just normal to have a conversation when you walk in this place. I know some people in here probably walk into an appointment and the seller will kind of ask, like, okay, what do you want to do? You know, where do you want to go? And someone will just sit there and say, oh, you know, the tour. You know, can I take a look around? And it's like, oh, man, you are just dragging here. So you want to make small talk. You know, you want to say, you know, something like, I mean, this weather that's coming up this week, the weather's good, something in the news positive, something about your drive-in, something about a restaurant you saw, you know, just whatever the case may be, but just something about, something they can relate to, something that's common, very easy to do.
Compliment the house, compliment the neighborhood. I can see why you bought this house, stuff like that.
Yeah, anything. You know, and if you want to use it in the form of a tie-down, go ahead, have fun with it, you know. Weather's gorgeous today, right? You know, and you're getting them to say yes and agree with you right off the bat, no matter what it is. You know, great game. See the Bruins game? Oh, unbelievable. You know, so there's a lot of things you can do, but start off the right way. Start off upbeat. Don't just walk into the house and be quiet and start walking around, uncomfortably walking behind a homeowner up the stairs, you know. So building rapport right away is going to be key because rapport is your foundation for the sale, okay? It's your absolute foundation. And you know what? If they don't like you, they're not signing with you. Have you ever bought something from somebody you didn't like? I mean, I can't think of a time in my life where I looked at somebody and I was like, I don't like this guy, but I'm going to buy from you. Okay? Does not happen. All right? So this is part of it. This is just planting the seeds for the more elaborate, you know, conversations of rapport building later, but just opening up and just being friendly and open and kind and just relating to them off the bat will set a really good foundation and complement your first impression right away. Building rapport, so you're in the house now and you're actually in the door. So you're in the door and you've made some small talk and you know you kind of want to take a look around. So now you're on the tour. Okay. Now rapport building isn't just talking about the weather or the sports game or something that happened or the neighborhood that you came in on. You know, it's about relating to them and relating to the house. So, you know, I always have fun in here when we role play rapport. It's just the most fun every time. Just because what we do is we teach that rapport is more than just creating that bond or that relationship. It's about analyzing your surroundings. Okay, you need to analyze the room that you're in. Okay, there are places of prominence in people's houses. Why does somebody put decorations up? For two reasons only. One, they like the decorations, or two, they want people to see them. Okay, simple little things like this get overlooked. But you can walk through, and it sounds so cheesy, so small and simple, but you know, if someone put obvious like decorations up or something like that, you can walk by and relate to it. Just say something about it. It's apparent that they put them up for one reason or another. Just if you're looking for a way to build rapport and someone has something, look on the walls. Why does somebody hang something on the wall? Because they want people to see it. What about the mantle over a fireplace? What about, you know, where's the next one? Yeah. Cabinets, fireplace, trophies, tables, decorations, pictures, awards, shelves. I mean, there's just like so many places that people will put things so that other people notice them.
I would say the interior of the house, you can pretty much know somebody inside and out just by what's in their house. You can figure out what they like to do. You can figure out their family situation, right? So we call it Ford family, occupation, recreation, dreams, right? You can figure all those things out just by looking around. Obviously, we don't want to just look around. We want to have the conversation. But if somebody does have a family, right, that's a pretty big part of their life. If somebody's got awards up for some occupation, right? Or they've got, their license hanging up of some sort. They're a CPA, they're a doctor, whatever profession they are. Recreation, what do they do for fun, right? Do they ski? Do they like going fishing? Do they like sports? And then dreams, what are their aspirations, right? So those are the four things that we want to hit on, and we want to make sure that we get to while we're on the appointment. Building rapport is the process of that person feeling more like you, right? Relating to you, right? The more that we can build a connection together, the better. I think, were you the one who said, oh no, it was Eric, who you had a grandmother situation where there were two grandmothers with the same name? Is that
Dawn.
you? Dawn Little. So,
Dawn.
Funny little story there. Don Little, he went out on a face-to-face seller appointment, and his grandmother and his grandmother's sister had the same name as that person's grandmother and that person's grandmother's sister. Now, he said to us that was an automatic connection, and he closed based on that, which is almost humorous that could actually happen. But that's the reality, is when you build that connection with somebody, automatically they're going to want to do business with you. So what is that connection? And there's so many different areas that we can connect. Did you go to college? Oh, I went to college too. Oh, you have two kids? How old are they? Oh, I've got kids the same exact age. Or I had kids. Or there's so many different ways. Each and every person in this room has a connection to somebody else in this room. It might not be an obvious one. So the purpose of going through the rapport building process is to find that connection. And there always is one, minimally, one good connection. Where did you grow up? Oh, I'm from Revere. Oh, you're from Revere too? Do you know this person? So there's so many different ways that we can do it.
You have to make a friend before you make a sale. I live by it, swear by it. You have to make a friend before you make a sale. You have to be relating. You have to be connecting. You have to be in this person's world. You just stepped inside their house, and within 20 minutes, you should feel at home with this person. For some way, reason, or another, there's just something in that house that you can connect with. And if you're not trying, if you left that house and they're standoffish, or they didn't like talking, or this guy was grumpy, he was in a bad mood, if you leave that appointment and you give the excuse that you just couldn't relate to that person, or that person was in a bad mood, or whatever the case may be, or they just didn't want it, if you're only in that appointment for 15 minutes or a 20-minute appointment and you're out, okay, that's because you've only gotten to the greet and it's not working for you, because there's steps, and I guarantee along the way that we've just explained, that have fallen apart and crumbled underneath you.
So if you've done rapport the right way, you have a lot to talk about, right? So you're prolonging your appointment, you're getting them to like you. If you don't build rapport, what it turns into is a tour of the house, give me your number, and then you're out the door. So that's the difference. That's the difference right there between following a sales process and just doing things, winging it.
Yep. So you want to, open up with, I think the line of all lines, right, is, well, my expertise is in the generation of offers for sellers, right? I mean, isn't that, I hope people are using that. I use it on every single appointment. I think it's really important to get that line across, and you can use it in so many different ways. Like somebody after the tour, might come up to you and say, oh, tell me about yourself. Tell me about Cameron. Tell me why you're different.
But before you do that, you've got to get to the table.
Oh, yes.
A contract has never been signed standing up, okay? So you cannot just stand in a doorway. I mean, unless there's absolutely no table or no place to sit down, you've got to get to a seat. And so sometimes people don't want to do that. They might give you a little bit of resistance. So one of the things that I know Tony's done and a couple other people have done is you put your laptop there, right? You've got to go back to the table no matter what. Mm-hmm. And once you get there, you take a seat, right? They're going to sit, right? Human nature, they're going to do it. So but you've got to get them back, right? You cannot have the conversation standing up, because having the conversation standing up, you're not going to be able to have a 20 or 30 or 40-minute conversation standing up. It's going to be abbreviated. It's going to be give me the number, and then it's going to be I'll think about it.
Exactly. You always have to get to the table, the couch, somewhere you can just sit and be comfortable to start to explain why you're there. And like I said, a second ago, I always like to start off because the line is so good. My expertise is in generating offers for sellers. People may ask you, what's different about you? Tell me about yourself. Tell me about Cameron. Whatever it is, that line fits all of them. And it gets you a good segue right into, what you're about, right? So, my expertise is in generating offers for sellers. and then you want to go right into, and this is what a lot of people do, is they actually judge appointments right then and there. So you may have, after the tour, after the greet, after the walk up to the house, you may feel that this house is retail. Okay, acquisition, no way. I know everyone's going to say they don't do this, but I know people sometimes don't give the number, go right to retail because it's retail. I know they do, and some people go in thinking it's acquisition all day long, and they'll pitch the acquisition hard, and they'll forget about retail because they're like, this house isn't even listable. It doesn't matter what the house is or what you think the house is. You have to follow the process. The reason we explain that we are experts in generating offers is because we can generate offers from two sides, right? We can generate investor offers, cash deals. We can generate the retail side. This is why we have the windows, right? So when you explain to people that you're able to generate offers from multiple pools of buyers, what are you doing? You're separating yourself. You are now different from the last investor who was only an investor. You're completely different from the realtor they met with because you have options, okay? You are different. You have now separated yourself from the pack and talking to someone about something that they've never even heard about. You do both? Like, I've gotten that a lot. Like, I didn't know you could do this and do that. I say, yeah, this is what we do. This is why we're different, okay? So don't be afraid when people ask you why you're different. You have great reasons. So we get into the first one. The first investor pool is the first pool is the investor side. Okay, so when you get into the investor window, it's very important to explain the details, the benefits of selling to an investor. Okay, there's a lot of benefits. Selling to an investor is very attractive, but so a couple of benefits. So number one, there's no inspections, right? There's no inspections when you're out there. Okay, they don't have to worry about a home inspection. They don't have to worry about fixing anything up. It's a cash offer, right? Everyone loves the cash offer. Who doesn't love cash, right? I know I do. You can choose your closing date, okay? You're in complete control. The seller can now choose the day they want to close. Do they want to close in 45 days? Do they want to close in 365 days? It doesn't matter. The timetable is very important to people. And when you tell somebody that they are in complete control of the timing in which this sale happens, you're giving them power. You're giving them control, and people love that. So when people feel control and they feel that power, they let their guard down. Okay?
So there's over 30 reasons why sellers sell to investors. It doesn't make sense for a lot of people. It doesn't make sense for the majority of the people that you're going to go out with. For the people that do want the investor offer, if you start talking about a listing, they're going to get mad, right? So at the end of the day, you're providing them with two solutions. And if you're doing it right, you're basically going in there as a consultant, and you're explaining the benefits of both. There are benefits of both. There are negatives of both, right? You've got to get an educated seller, and that's your job, is to educate them on the pluses and minuses. Because at the end of the day, they 100% do not know the difference. They don't know the difference. They don't know the difference between what a retail sale is like. They don't know what an investment sale is like. So when you shortcut some of these steps, like educating the seller, you're not helping them, and you're not helping yourself. So you've really got to go into detail about why it makes sense to sell to an investor. Well, what is the negative of selling to an investor? In most cases, but not all, the offer is going to be a little bit less. So, the seller has to weigh. What makes the most sense? Does it make the most sense for me to leave in 4 weeks from today, not have to clean out my house, not do an inspection, not have someone's financing potentially fall through, not have a buyer that puts an offer on the house and then backs out at inspection, or backs out because they find another house that they like? That stuff happens all the time. It's not uncommon for a seller to list retail and then take a cash offer after realizing what the retail sales process is like. So you've got to understand, and that's part of, I know he's going to talk about qualifying questions too, but you've really got to figure out what their needs are in order to even help them make a recommendation. So if you don't understand their needs, how long do they need, where are they going next, how much money do they need, you can't give them an educated opinion.
So the range window, when we're talking about the investor range window, like I said before, you're putting everyone in a box. You want to put all investors in this box of offers because you're not attaching yourself. You're not saying, listen, I offer this, and then what they're going to do is they're going to go out and use it against you. You're saying, listen, all offers are going to be in this range. You explain why they're going to be in this window, and then, why. Some people will say why. Some people will say, why is everyone going to be in this window? And you're just going to explain to them that everyone's looking at the same data, we're analyzing it all together, and that, the only thing that really varies the offer window is the renovation cost. Because there are some investors out there that may only want to go in and put lipstick on a pig. They might want to just go in and paint and carpet. Someone like Tom wants to go in and renovate from, basement to roof. Who knows? But those costs are going to vary on what the investor can pay. So these are little things and little tidbits that you can educate your seller on when it comes to the investor side of why the offers range and why they're so spread out and why it's $50,000 from difference. You don't want to go out there and say, oh, well, all offers are going to be in this range. I don't know why.
To me, the number one reason why you want to give the window on the investor side, which he might say is 230 to 265, is because what a lot of sellers are going to want to do is they're going to want to take your 230 offer, go to the next investor, and that next investor says, oh, I'll pay you 235, right? Sellers don't really know how this game works, right? So they might take our offer of 230, go to 235, that person offers them 235, and they take it. And they're not agents, right? They're not used to selling a house. They don't know that they can then maybe go back to me and get 236. They make the assumption, Tom's offers 230, this offers 235, that offers better. I'm sick of meeting with investors at this point, so I'm going to take it, right? That happens all the time. The one in Gloucester that he alluded to in the beginning is the best example of that, which is he gave the window, the guy did shop it around, all the numbers were in that window, he came back to us and we bought the house. I guarantee that if he gave my number right out of the gate, they would have shopped it and then they would have went to whoever the highest person was.
Yep.
Why do you feel he came back to you after he shopped?
Because I never gave him my number. I told him I was going to be in that range.
What made you so different that he came back to you instead of taking another offer on the shop?
Rapport building was one of the things. Number two, I got the exclusive signed because I was pitching, let's test the price, right? Because all investor offers are going to be in this window.
So you had him sign.
I had the exclusive in my back pocket, knowing that he was probably going to be in acquisition. So I knew the whole time he was acquisition. But I got the exclusive right signed because that's a mental hurdle. I got him to sign with me. I got him to commit with me. I got him to just completely and utterly just eat out of the palm of my hand, okay, on the appointment. Okay? And it's what you got to do.
So
It's what you have to do.
The rest of the shopping around was just verification for you.
Yes, so I gave him my window. I never gave him my number so that he could shop my number against me. So when he came out, he had 2 investors before me. He had about 3 others come out after me. He had 2 people from work that he works for, like a construction company. 2 people from work that like buy and flip houses on the side, come out and look at it. And in the end, he always was coming back to me because, number one, he wanted my number. He wanted to know where I was. And I always told him to give me the last call. I said, always, you know what, no matter what you get, no matter how many offers you get, just give me a chance to come back and see what I can do for you. All right? And that's the reason. So one was rapport, and I had the exclusive. He was committed to me. And number 2 is he wanted my number, and I closed him on the fact that, listen, no matter what you get, just give me the last say. Okay? Just, promise me that call back. And I knew when he signed the exclusive right that he was gonna just absolutely do, what he said he was gonna do, and that was give me the last shot.
You already knew his numbers before you came in.
Yeah, definitely. He had offers on the table. So I gave him the range, and I'm telling you, I nailed it on this one. I gave him the range, and both offers that he had received prior were in the window.
So one thing to keep in mind, though, when you guys give my offer, you give a window, whatever you do, it's very uncommon that my offer is going to be 220 and some investor is going to pay 280. It doesn't happen, right? So it's going to be my offer is 220, maybe the next person's 210, maybe the next person's 230, maybe 240. I mean, everybody's running their numbers the same exact way, right? We actually run our numbers as thin as we can, right? We actually want to make as high of an offer as we can on the investment side because we know that Boston is so competitive. So yeah, would I like to make the offer that I made for 220, would I love it if they took a 160 offer? Yes, but I know that that's not realistic. So we actually look at it, what's the highest amount we can pay and still live with it? So in that case, people did go back and forth. He got a lot of offers and we ended up paying the highest. But paying the highest in that case was insignificant on that deal. My original offer maybe was 175, and then we paid 185. So it really had no real impact on that deal.
Nope, it didn't at all, but it was the way that I played the game, which was why it resulted in that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, using the window can make you come back looking like an expert. And looking like an expert makes you look like you're the clear choice.
That's why I use the window. That's exactly why I use the window. Well, one, because I don't want to attach myself, because you do that, you're done. But number two, when you give the window, knowing full well that the window is going to encapsulate 90% of all offers, even if you make it like 50 grand, it's probably going to encompass all of them. Now you've just presented them with facts. You've just presented them with trust, credibility, likability. They now believe you, because when I gave him that window, I didn't know he had offers on the table. He said that he had met with a couple people, but usually all those other investors need like, oh, I'll get back to you in a day or two. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. So I didn't know he actually had offers on the table. I just knew he was meeting with people. And so when I gave that window and just encapsulated his offers, I mean, I think that's why I got him signed.
Be very careful of that too, right? You know, I think a lot of people go in on the assumption seller's going to tell me everything. They're going to be completely honest and truthful, and sometimes they are. Quite frequently, they're not. So just be aware of that, just from your own mindset. They may tell you they have offers they don't have. They may tell you they're not meeting with anybody else and they've met with 5 people, right? So depending on the person, you almost kind of have to put out of your head what they're saying.
Yep. And so, go ahead.
I had one question on that. So when you went out there and you gave him the range,
Yep.
you never gave him that number that day?
Nope.
Never.
Never.
When do you know when to do it?
Yeah, so like when they respond favorably, what do you do? Because sometimes they will respond favorably.
Oh, well, I mean, actually, he responded favorably. I mean, I got the exclusive sign, so he was liking it. He liked the options. That's what sold him on this appointment. He liked the fact that I had options. He liked the fact that I could test the price, and he liked it that I could pay cash for the house, which he was really interested in. And I got the positive feedback from him, and, you know, I didn't give him my number on that first appointment. I think I didn't give him the number until, and you know what, I'm telling you, I even kept it at a range. When I knew we were at 185, I kept playing the fiddle with like, oh, you know, I might be able to get up to the 180 mark. We're going to be in that range. I never confirmed or was solid on a number at all until it was the offer that made us the highest. And I had him. That's the one where I gave him the number. I didn't give him a number prior. I always kept it floating out there to keep, you got to keep the carrot in front of the horse. So to answer your question, you know, I didn't give it to him on the first one. When you give your number, just make sure that when you do give it, you're giving it to be the highest. You're giving it to close the deal. The number is a closing tool. The number, it's not a negotiating tool. It can be if you're dealing with a seller and that seller you don't have any direct competition. But when there are other investors in the mix, you don't want to deliver that because now you're not negotiating with your number. The seller is negotiating with your number. You've lost control of that situation. When it's just you and a seller, and we've gone on appointments like this, and it's just you and a seller, and there's no other competition in the mix, you want to give your number, you feel a little comfortable with it. You know, sometimes, you know, if you feel as though it's okay, you know what I mean, use your judgment. I recommend against it. I always leave it hanging a little bit. But if there's competition at all, you sniff any competition, definitely hang on to it. Keep it close to the vest because it's a closing tool, not a negotiation tool.
So you got him signed on the exclusive. What number did you use there? Retail number?
Yeah, retail number, like 250. We were going to test 250 for him. Yeah, yep. Just I got everything signed, and then he liked the idea of it. And 2 weeks later, what was more important for him was the timing. He really wanted out. He just wanted out. He didn't. In this case, and also I'll get into this another one. But he liked the comfort of having the cash offer sitting behind him as we tested the price. So we, like again, options were why this guy signed, and so we were going to test it at 250, and then in the end, 250, 185, 200. It's like and after fees, and you reverse engineer it after even if it sold for 250, probably would have sold for 230. It's like how much more are you going to make on this deal to go through the listing process? You know, to showing, open houses, and fixing things, and inspections, and the whole nine. To him, he just wanted to be done with the house. And so timing for him was more important than the money. And so when we get into qualifying questions, that's a great question to ask. You know, what is more important, the timing in which you sell your house or the bottom line you get at the end? You know, you want to get real with people, get this kind of information from them. So Yeah. So when we give the investor offer, it's very, very crucial that we transfer into the retail side of things if it's not going well on the investor side, or if you get that cold response, right? Because everyone talks about the investor window, you talk about all these great benefits, and then you go through this whole thing, and they're like, nah, nope, don't want it, too low, not good enough, okay? I was expecting more. So you take that cold response, and you want to transition into the retail window side. So now you start to go into, well, I can generate offers, like I said before. My expertise is in generating offers for sellers. I can generate offers in this range on this side. So now you start talking about the window on this side, because now it's probably going to be at least 50 to 60, maybe more thousand higher than what you were just talking about. And so use it as a tie down. You know, doesn't this range of offers sound a lot better? Of course it does, right? You get them going, get them talking and agreeing with you. And then once you have that window, the retail window side, now you can start to talk to them about listing it, the benefits of selling it in this range. You know, yes, there's going to be, you know, you can't pick your closing date. You know, there may be a contingency upon finding suitable housing. There may be a lot more obstacles in the way when you're listing a house, but you're getting paid for it. There's a payoff there. And a lot of people are willing to go through the process for the payoff. So when you're pitching on the retail side, you better have your numbers straight. You gotta have your numbers on point. Even though you're putting in a range out there, you gotta be careful with that range as well. You better know your window, because if you go out there and their house could sell for $500 on the market, and you're like, oh yeah, you know, 425 to 470, they heard 425. They didn't hear the second number. They hear the first number you said. So when you're given that window, you got to be careful, because you should go out there and start talking about 425, and they know their house is worth 500. You are now in recovery mode, okay? And now you're gonna have to justify, and you're gonna have to come up with that. So make sure that you're on point, because they might let you just go right by it. They might let you go over your pitch. Oh yeah, 425 to 450 sounds good, and you'll get through the whole thing. And then at the end of the appointment, I want to think about it, because they want someone who's going to get them more money for their house. Okay, so the presentation is after the greet. The presentation is where you're going to present your value, right? So you're going to present your value. You're going to present your why we're different, why you. You know, there's a lot of value to be had on an appointment that you have to incorporate. And sometimes people will miss things. They'll skip over them. They'll forget. They're just kind of like in the heat of the moment, and they'll just, you know, start talking. And you got to be aware. You got to be in control of your appointment at all times. So explaining both sides of the fence and of the windows gives you value. Because like I said before, people are talking to an investor or they're talking to a realtor. When they talk to somebody who does both, it adds value. So whenever you go to an appointment, make sure you explain both sides. Explaining both sides adds value, regardless of what you think of the house. So when we're talking about value, the two pools of buyers, right? When you have two pools of buyers, what does that show somebody? They have options. Okay, people love to have options, because when they have options, they can choose from these options. When they have the power to choose, you know, now they're in control. People like to be in control of you know, transactions like this. Testing the price. People love testing the price out, because what does that show you? We can get you more money. We can get you more money for your house. Okay, people love more money. I haven't met someone who didn't. So when you start talking about testing the price and the coming soon, go ahead. With Zillow's coming soon. So testing the price is when you get somebody to sign an exclusive and non-MLS, and what you're going to do is you're going to take a few photos, post it on the coming soon, and you're going to be able to put a price point out there that your comps say is a reasonable price. And so when you put a reasonable house with a reasonable price on the market these days, it's going to sell quick. And if you do that, you're going to get a lot of activity. So on a Zillow coming soon, you can track all of the clicks and all of the views and the saves that go into that. People, like, you know, when they log on, they search for homes in a price range, they'll be able to see this home. And so when you get maybe like 1,000 views to 2,000 views in a week on a house, that 2,000's exceptional. 1,000 is probably average. So based in that range, wherever they fall, you're going to get a really good idea of how the public's perception is on your price.
The biggest thing, though, to consider with the Zillow coming soon, the biggest value add, the reason it's a closing tool, is because you're putting it on there and it's not officially for sale on the MLS. So a seller likes the idea of testing the price, right? But you don't want to test it on MLS. You don't want to put it 50,000 too high on MLS, because then what happens? Now you reduce the price by 10, 20, 30,000. Every buyer is saying, what's wrong with this property, right? So getting the price right is one of the most important things and one of the biggest value adds as real estate agents, because a lot of times the seller is going to end up picking the wrong price if it was up to them. So using a coming soon allows us to test the price. It allows us to have no history of that house ever really being available for sale. It allows us to then put it on the market for the right price. And in some cases, it allows us just to get a feel for what the buyers are going to be willing to do for that particular property. So sometimes we'll get a seller that maybe they're not ready to sell their house right away. Maybe they're thinking 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. What does Zillow Coming Soon allow you to do? Let's just test out how things are going for the next 30 days. I know you're not ready right now, but this is the perfect tool to use between now and then, right? So there's been so many listings that I know Tony has locked up himself where the seller said, I'm not ready. Oh, that's no problem. What's the line that you use?
Perfect.
No, the one about them not being ready yet.
Oh, with the reverse engineering of the.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So.
Talk a little bit about that.
So that is absolutely, a lot of people get held up on this. They'll go into a seller appointment and they'll get the objection, I want to sell, and this is a good question I always ask people, if you could pick any month of the year to sell your house, what month would that be? Number one, it's almost a rhetorical question because they're not going to pick winter months, right? No one's like, oh, I want to sell my house right at Christmas, okay? It's never going to happen. Like you're baiting them, okay? They're going to give you a spring or summer month, right? I mean, it's just so ridiculous. So when they tell you a summer month, you reverse engineer it. So somebody may say, you know what, I like what you're saying, I like how you are right now, but I'm not ready to sell my house. I'd really like to sell my house in July. Okay, July 1st. Okay, perfect. Well, you know what, if you want to sell your house in July, that means it has to be listed. It takes 60 days to close. So we're going to have to list this May 1st to sell July 1st. And if we're going to list it May 1st, we have to do the pre-marketing for 60 days. So that brings us back, to March 1st. And if we're going to start the pre-marketing March 1st, we need to take pictures right now, okay? Like right now. We're behind. We are late to this dance, okay? If you want to sell in July, okay?
So
and it's February.
It all goes back to educating the person, right? They don't know anything about selling a house, right? If you're making the assumption that their objection is correct, you're actually doing them a disservice, right? So like you just said, they want to sell in July. We've got to get moving right now, right? Because we've got to put all the processes in place to get that done, okay? So oftentimes they're not going to understand things and they're going to want to make actually the wrong decision for themselves. We want to help them make the right decision, and that's going to be mutually beneficial.
Yeah, you definitely have to add value into it. You have to educate them. Sometimes you have to paint the picture for them of where they'll go, what they'll do, stuff like that. The fourth P, another point of value that we do here, why we're different. People always ask you and they want to know why we're different. The fourth P, there's actually like 6 or 7 Ps, but we call it the fourth P because we prospect. We are going to pay. We have a marketing budget allocated to promoting our listings. And I'm probably sure about 80% of people in here don't mention that when they're out in the field. Letting people know that we actually put money aside to pay to promote your listing. A typical agent is an independent contractor, and their marketing budget comes out of their bank account. And how many agents do you know? And that's why they have the MLS, because they think MLS is the be-all, end-all of marketing for them. That's their marketing platform, the MLS. You have to take it one step further. You have to go out. You have to put it on the top 10 national websites. You have to use Facebook and use Instagram and use all these different platforms to get the listing out there. And we spend money to do so when other agencies don't.
So the line is there's 4 Ps of prospecting. Most real estate agents do the first 3. They put a sign in the ground, they put the property in the MLS, and they pray that somebody else sells it. And that is 100% true, right? We do what we call the 4th P of the 4th P, which is prospecting. And so just yesterday, literally just popped up on my Facebook, we spent $3,700 on Facebook yesterday, right? Nobody else is doing that. And spending the money, the fourth P, is actually another rebuttal to the objection of, well, shouldn't I use a local agent? And using a local agent is fine, but the objection basically is stating that I should use a local agent because a local agent is going to have the buyers in Reading or in Stoneham or in Chelmsford or whatever city we're in, right? So if I use a Chelmsford agent, they're going to have the Chelmsford buyers. Not correct, because real estate isn't done like that anymore, right? People don't drive by the local Century 21 or Remax or Keller Williams office and walk in and say, hey, give me all the Reading listings that you have for sale. How do buyers find properties today? They go online. And they're always starting with Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Facebook, all the places that we put that $3,700 a day into, right? And that's just Facebook, right? We do other things as well. But I'm just, saying that to illustrate a point, right? So nobody else is doing that. 100%, nobody else in Massachusetts does that.
So we also have a buyer database. A lot of people know this. Not a lot of people use it. Having the buyer database and collecting, because that's what, and then some people may ask, well, what if I do the coming soon and I decide not to sell? What do you get out of it? And I tell people, well, having your listing up there for 2 months is marketing for us, and it's marketing for us. And we're actually, the point of me putting your Zillow coming soon out there is to find the buyers. And so regardless if you decide to sell or not to sell, just, have a comfort knowing that I'm actually getting something out of this too, while I'm helping you. And that's creating the buyer database. Because creating the buyer database means that we may have the buyer. Some people may use the something for nothing clause where they offer to take 1% off if they find the buyer. Some people like that. It can be useful. You can use it, and this is one of the tools that you can incorporate into why you would take 1% off to find the buyer. Also, it's possible to sell your house without listing it. I've done this several times, a lot of times, where right from the coming soon, right to an offer, non-MLS. And people like that. People like the fact that I'm able to get offers off market for their house, private showing. Someone who's just absolutely dying to get into this house called me up and said, listen, I got to get in here. And you have the ability to call the seller and say, listen, I have somebody really interested. I know it's not for sale yet, but I think for this person, it would be worth your while to just have a showing. And what you're going to do is you're going to bring them in for maybe a showing or something, and get a deal going. And I've done that a bunch of times. It's almost split down the middle with the coming soons. So that's people like that, and the comfort of the cash offer while sitting in the background while listing it. People like that. People like the comfort. People know that they can test the price. You can list the house. You can sell it for them. You're going to try to get more. You're going to try to get them more. But just know that our cash offer is sitting there waiting for you if something were to change, if circumstances were different. If you get tired of showing the house, if you just want to take it off the market, if it gets too much for you, if it's overwhelming, because you can go into a house and see, somebody and they're on the fence about listing it. Maybe they already have doubts in their mind about the process, and you kind of push them over the edge to list it with you. But you know that if something goes wrong with the listing process, like a too crowded over house, open house, just anything will set them off. You just know that there's a comfort there. We have a cash offer. At any time you want to stop the process, your house is still sold.
So if you've ever seen the marketing, they'll say, guaranteed sale in 30 days or 45 days or 60 days or we'll buy it. We're the only people that can actually do that, right? A lot of times that's used as a marketing tool just to get the listing. We can 100% buy the house, right? So it's just another option. In this market, that doesn't happen too often, right? Happens once in a while. When it does happen, the seller's happy to do it. We had a single family in Revere. Jason Goldfarb listed the home. There were 2 backouts, right? The property was kind of in between what should be an investor house and a retail house. Looked good enough for a retail buyer or a first-time home buyer to walk through and say, hey, I want to buy this house. Then they get the inspection and, well, it's in the middle, right? So for a lot of retail buyers, that type of house does not work, right? That could have went retail, but it didn't. And after the second backout, she said, you know what? You were right in the beginning. I wanted a cash offer. I'm going to take a cash offer. And we closed on that property. So, for some people, they do want to test it both ways, and they tested it. Now, it could have easily gone the other way. Maybe she put it retail and it went retail. But we have that option to do that.
So now, when you're talking about the retail window and the investor window, I mean, there's one point that we got to get across, and it's the anchor of the sale, and it's what I am trying to sell the whole time. And I use it in the form of a tie down every time. People probably know what I'm going to say, but it's, would you agree that pricing is the most important part about selling your house? Okay, they're obviously going to say yes. Okay, everyone is going to agree. I mean, you ask the question because maybe there's someone out there that doesn't agree with you, but you never know. I mean, someone could say, well, no, it's not. But then, you know what? Good thing you asked that question, because now you're going to find out what the most important thing is if that's not it. But you ask that question in the form of a tie down because now you're getting them to confirm with you that this is the most important part. That is the sale within the sale. Okay, that's what you're closing on. That's what you need them to confirm. You don't want to tell them that pricing is the most important part about selling their house. Okay, you can tell them that, but getting them to confirm with you, getting them to say yes and agreeing with you on that point is so important. You have to anchor the whole sale to that point. Once you sell them on the pricing is the most important part, now the testing the price, the pre-marketing that we do, everything carries more weight. So before you even get into it, you start talking about how pricing is the most important part, and now everything you say after that is going to just sound and feel more powerful to them because now you're explaining the hows and the whys of how you're going to get them more money for their house. So now, so basically you're selling them on the strategy of how and why you're going to get them more money for the house. So you're selling them on the pricing is the most important part and then the hows and the whys of it. But you got to ask the right questions. So we get into qualifying questions, and qualifying questions, everyone's out there asking, the same kind of questions, and, but does it vary? If you find yourself asking the same questions on every appointment, like the same 3 or 4 questions, how old's your roof? All right, how old's your heating system? All right, I mean, it's just like so redundant. You know what I mean? Like
You're not out there to learn about the house. I think that's the most important thing. Forget about the house. You can ask some house questions. You got to ask some house questions. If you ask all house questions, it's not going to go down the right path.
No, you have to mix it up. You absolutely have to mix it up. So asking the right questions is going to help you uncover readiness, motivation, pain points, and it's also going to help you build rapport. Because you never know where your questions are going to lead you. You can go down many roads. A question might lead you to a pain point. A question might lead to some motivation or to the readiness point of it. Or a question may open up a can of rapport. And all of a sudden, you ask the question, and boy, did you get an answer. Okay, because it's 20 minutes of back and forth about, Christmases in Tahiti. And it's like, okay, great. Yeah, So, but when you're asking questions, the most important part, well, it's synonymous, but I really feel like even if you didn't know what to ask and you were just asking questions, it's the responses that you get that are going to guide you through the conversation. You have to listen, okay? You have to be a great listener. When you ask somebody a question, you ask them for their response. You didn't just ask it to ask a question, right? Because you were supposed to ask it because everyone else asked it and it's whatever. You asked it to get a response, and everybody's response can be slightly different. And so the response that you get from any particular question is going to help guide you to the next question. So if a question leads you to a pain point, you want to dig a little bit. Don't just skim over it. Whatever response you get, if it has some meaning to it, you want to dig a little deeper and get off the surface.
And we've got a list of qualifying questions, but just simple ones like, why are you moving? Where are you going? Why did you call an investor instead of calling an agent? All of those things are going to give you the insight to what they're thinking. Because the only way that we can actually really help them is if we understand their situation and know what they're thinking, right? If we don't know that, if we don't understand why they called out an investor, then, well, maybe they don't need an investor offer. Maybe they don't want an investor offer, right? Maybe they just thought we would pay double what their property's worth because we're knocking down every house and putting up townhouses. We've all had those appointments, for sure. So you've really got to understand their situation to make an evaluation. The best way to think about it is you go to the doctor asks you a million questions. Now, your first response when you go to the doctor and something's wrong is you want the medication. You want them to fix your problem immediately. and they ask all of those annoying questions anyways. They make you tell them if you're allergic to this, if you've done that, if it's a half an hour before you're even talking about your problem. This is the same exact thing here. The seller is going to want to control the qualifying questions and skip them, and they're going to want to get you to give them the number. But you've got to understand their situation just like a doctor understands a patient's situation, so that you can prescribe them what makes the most sense, because they're not going to know. They're not going to know. They might think they know. They might think I want an investor offer, but they really don't. They might think they want to list retail, but they really don't. They might think they're not even selling their house, and they really do. So there's all of those things that go into it as to why you've got to ask these questions. And after you ask a question, you shouldn't be thinking about what you're going to say next. You've got to actually, okay, what did they say? Why did they say it? Right? Put yourself in their shoes. If I were them, what would make the most sense for me?
So a couple more questions, just in case people are wondering about some qualifying questions that you could ask. If you sold your house today, where would you go tomorrow? Okay, it's a great question. It's hypothetical. People like to play with it in their mind. Oh, and what you're gonna get from this question is, well, I don't know, or you're gonna get a well thought out process. And so this is going to give you a little bit of insight into how much thought they've actually put into the sale of their home. Okay, because if people are serious about it and they're ready to go, they've already thought about this. They already know the answer. Is the timing in which in selling your house more important than the bottom line or the money? You want to get a feel for what's more important, timing or money. I always use this one. If you could choose any month of the year to sell your house, what month would it be? I think Eric used that one on his listing he got last weekend. And then you want to, but that question, you need to reverse engineer their timetable. That's why you ask that question. So don't just ask the question and say, oh, I love June. Love it. My favorite month. Yeah. So, it's just like, no, like you want to explain about June and or July or August. So right now you're going to get people who don't want to sell till June, July, August, September now. Back in November, people were saying spring. Now people are going to say late summer and fall. Okay, well, you know what? Reverse engineer it. That's why you asked the question. What is the biggest obstacle in your way from keeping you from selling tomorrow? Like, why can't you sell this house tomorrow? Okay, and if they'll tell you. Now you're digging for pain. You're digging for these reasons why they're not going to sell. What are you looking for? A new home that this one doesn't have. Why do you want to move? What are you looking for that this house can't give you that you want? These are just simple questions you can ask. I actually have a master list of about 40 questions that I give to my class, and we're always updating them. So you got to ask these questions. These are different. I'm not sure if everyone's ever asked these, but they're really good to have. You have to tie down throughout the process. A lot of people don't know what tying down is, or what tying down is getting someone to agree with you. Tying down is getting someone into the conversation. Okay, it's about changing it's from changing statements into questions. Okay, because a statement has no power. Okay, but a question does. So you may say, for instance, I always use the example. You can tell somebody that testing the price is the most important part about selling their house. Okay, great. You hope they absorb it, and you hope they believe you. But you didn't get their opinion on it. So getting their confirmation and actually getting them to agree with, would you agree that pricing is the most important part about selling your house? When you get them to agree with you and you get them to say yes, and you get them on the same page with you, now you just pitch something, you put an idea out there, they just said yes to it. So now you're getting them in the habit of saying yes. You want to be tying down as much as you can. A tie down is a small close. Okay, it's a very small close, and all these small closes add up. And if you add them up right, they should add up to the eventual close at the end.
There's actually a psychology around getting people to say yes. And some of you, because you're in the sales field, you might have seen it before. But literally, the more you can get somebody to say yes, the more likely they are to say yes at the end. Above and beyond the fact that you want them to feel involved in the conversation. So if you're saying a tie down, I don't know, Nick, his class is great, isn't it?
It's awesome.
Right? So instead of me saying that this class is great, right? So now he's I'm part of the conversation. One of the things you also have to keep in mind is that most people, like you guys are here today, you're not retaining everything. And the person on the other side of you is not retaining everything for sure, So you've got to keep them engaged. If you don't keep them engaged and you're just telling, they're going to start to drift off. And tie downs are a good way to keep them involved in the conversation. Now they can't fall asleep while you're talking, right? You know, if I say, Darren, that makes sense, right? And, you know, so simple enough.
Oh yeah, exactly. If I ask, trust me, you might catch some seller snoozing on you. Okay, you know.
Or
Oh,
just
yeah.
drifting.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
you know.
seriously, they might be thinking about it. You ask them, you know, does this make sense? So a couple of things about tie downs, like a couple of statements you guys can use. For one, does this make sense? Right? Just ask them a question. Does this make sense? Just keep them. Ask them. Make sure they're still breathing. Okay. You know, would you agree? Is it safe to say? You know, is it safe to say this or is it safe to say that? Great benefit, right? Powerful marketing, right? Wouldn't you agree? You know, do you feel? Would you say? Little catchphrasings that if you just take your statements that you're pitching and put these little phrases in front of your sentences and turn your statements into questions to get their opinion on things, you're going to be making your small closes along the way.
Is it making sense to why we have to have class on this 3 times a week, right? Because this stuff, you have to practice it over and over and over again, right? So we're not even scratching the surface.
I know.
Like I feel like right now we have
I
to
know.
cut that part short, that part short. Like
Yeah.
building rapport
There's so much.
is at least an hour, right? It's an hour to even fully, you know, go into it, and then we've got to practice it because understanding this stuff is fine, right? You might now know what a tie down is, right? Then you might practice it and you might know a few tie downs, but then you've got to use them, right? And then you've got to use them on the Tuesday classes, and then you've got to use them in person, right? So the hardest thing I think about following a sales process is once you get somebody face to face, the appointment is never going to go exactly how we're drawing it up right here. So it takes a lot of practice and honestly a lot of discipline to go through and walk yourself through. You've got to know this stuff backwards and forwards to say, oh, I've got to understand that I've got to ask more qualifying questions, or I need to start tying down, or, you know, again, even more part trial closing that we're going to get into. So you should, if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, this is a lot, it's because it is. And if you're thinking, wow, this would help me a lot if I could actually do this stuff, you can. I mean, it's a huge difference between people who are using this stuff and people who are just, like I said, going out and winging it. Oh, people like me, you know, I'll build rapport. They'll like me. They'll list with me. Yeah, maybe some people will. But a lot of them, you're going to miss things here along the way, and then it's not going to work out the way you planned.
Yeah.
And this is a lot different than going out on a sphere appointment. You know, for those of you who have had a lot of listings in the past or come from somewhere else, yeah, when, you know, your college roommate's, you know, cousin, you go out there and you meet with them, they're going to list with you unless you're a jerk, right? That's basically the baseline of whether or not they're going to work with you. If they like you in that case, they're going to work with you. This is cold traffic, right? How do you convert somebody who you've never met with before? So you have to follow this process.
Yeah, tying down is important not only because, you know, you're getting them in the conversation, you're engaging them, but you ever go through a seller appointment where like you're talking, you feel like you're doing most of the talking, they're not really responding too much, and they're giving you the nod and they're giving you the yes, and they're kind of just going with the flow, and you're taking those nods and you're taking those head shakes as like they feel you, right? They understand what I'm saying. They just nodded, right? I mean, here we go. They just gave me the wink and the gun here. You know, like they know what I'm talking about, all right? No, it's not the case. You're probably getting a counterfeit yes. There's a counterfeit yes, a confirmation yes, and a commitment yes, okay? And so if you're just going through the motions and you're getting the nods and the yeses and the yeses without any real confirmation, you're getting yes to leave, okay? You're getting yes to death because they're trying to be polite, okay? So that's a different yes. The confirmation yes, the more powerful yes, is the tie-down yes. That's when you ask them if they would agree or would you say so. Now, when you get them tying down, you get them to agreeing, that is more powerful. It is confirmation that they understand what you're saying because you just asked them a direct question on it. And so that's a more powerful yes. And you want to, a lot of people get them confused. A lot of people will say, well, it was a great conversation, a little bit back and forth, and they were into it. You feel like it was a normal conversation, but it wasn't. And so you got to be aware of this. I mean, I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face, but the sales process is all about being aware of what you're doing. Be aware of the yeses that you're getting. Are you getting the right yeses? Okay, and if you get enough confirmation yeses, you're going to get the commitment yes at the end to sell or to sign with you. Always have your next question ready. So a lot of times, I know that people in my class, they probably have the paper with all the qualifying questions on them. You want to have it in your notebook. You always want to have your next question ready to go. The responses you get from people should generate your next question for you. But sometimes you're going to be out there and you may draw a blank, or you may not even really know what question to ask next. If you find yourself just kind of looking and reaching for something, anything, you start asking, what most people do is revert back to asking questions about the house. That's just because that's all they know and that's what they'll do. But you got to keep it going on the qualifying side. You have to keep asking them questions about where they're going, what they're doing. You got to hit on forward. You got to do all these different things to find all the pain points, readiness, and motivation. You should attack every seller appointment as if you're going to be tested on it by Tom when you walk out of that house. That's the mentality. When you walk out of this house, we are going to grill you, okay, on every single thing about this house. Were they ready? Were they motivated? What were their pain points? What was this? What was that? So you got to be aware. You got to go into it, every single one, just like that. And if you do that and you practice it and you're disciplined with it, you'll see your conversion rate go up. And qualifying questions for people who build too much rapport. Qualifying questions help you get out of rapport pits. Okay, having your next question ready will help you get out, because a lot of times people will spend 15, 25 minutes talking about rapport and who knows what, and the next thing you know, it's hard to get back to business, right? It's hard to turn the page. It's hard to get people back into the conversation about business, right? You might have been talking about testing the price, and I'm going to sell your house for more, and then all of a sudden they're off talking about the trophy on the mantle, and it's like, oh my God. How do I get back? How do I get that momentum back? How do I keep the sale alive? How do I keep it going? Having your qualifying questions ready to go and having them in your mind and having them, just ready to, go off on them. It's just, that's what you need to have. You have to be ready. You have to practice. You have to memorize. Use flashcards. Have the sheet with you. Open up your folder. Take a peek. Have questions ready to go. It's going to tie your whole thing back into it. Because sometimes you think you're closing on rapport, but you're really not. You're just there for, tea time.
So
Seriously.
my most important sales technique that he's taught me is trial closing. By far, I don't even have a close second. So trial closing is the process of essentially taking the temperature of where the process is in the sales. So in the appointment. So for example, something simple like, how does this sound? How does the process sound to you? Is very important to ask, because at the end of the day, one of the things that is kind of tough is from going from that rapport, going from the qualifying questions, then immediately go into the close. If you go for a hard close, the problem is that you're going to put somebody on the defensive, right? So when you say yes or no to somebody, are you going to list with me, or are you not going to list with me, or are you going to take the offer or not? Someone's going to go into a defensive position. Now, when they go into a defensive position, in some cases, they may end up signing with you, right? They may say, gun to my head, yeah, I'm going to do it. A lot of people, the problem is they'll go into the I want to think about it mode, okay? And I want to think about it mode is pretty much the worst thing you can possibly do. So the way that you get around that is by trial closing, because what ends up happening is the response to that question, the response to the trial closing question will help you determine whether or not you should actually go for the close or you miss something. The question, did I miss something, is actually a trial close. Did I miss anything, right? And if you miss something, they're going to point it out. And if they say no, then you can continue to progress along. So really, by the time you're asking trial questions, you're basically saying, are you ready to move forward with me? But you're doing it in a non-confrontational way that doesn't put a gun to their head and say, let's get this started. Let's sign right now. So what are your favorite trial closes?
Oh, I got a lot of trial closes.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I got a lot. Go ahead.
Say, did I answer all your questions?
Yeah, exactly. Or ask me a question. Ask me a question.
Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, do you have any questions for me? Ask me a question. Put them on the spot, because they have to have a question, right? Ask me a question. And you know what they're going to do? Because they weren't ready for that, they're going to tell you exactly what's on their mind.
Yeah.
You're gonna catch
100%.
you're gonna catch them right on the spot, and you're gonna get something. You're gonna get something you probably didn't expect. So that's a very powerful one. Just ask me a question.
What concerns do you have for me?
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns about this process?
Yeah. How does the process sound? Do you have any concerns? How do you feel about what we've discussed so far? Are there any topics you feel we haven't covered? Right? Maybe there's something that they met with somebody else, they talked about with that person. Maybe we didn't hit on it today. Are there any topics you feel we haven't discussed? They may say, oh, you know what? This other person talked about X, Y, and Z. And you know what? Oh, well, let me talk about that. And you go into it about whatever their concern may be. Do you feel comfortable with how I explained everything? You feel comfortable with how I explained everything today? And they may say, you know what, maybe can you just touch on this again? Or can you say that again? But you want to know these things because this is going to uncover all the reasons they would have just said, I want to think about it, if you had gone to closing. So do you need more clarity on anything? Maybe you skimmed over something too fast. Maybe you said something wrong and didn't notice it. Maybe you said something and it came out the wrong way. Maybe they just interpreted it differently. But asking somebody if they need more clarity on anything is a great question because what if they do? Because if they do need more clarity on something, you weren't signing them. You were not going to do it. By asking that question, now you're getting it out. Now you're uncovering more pain points, more questions, more doubt. You're now conquering more objections that they would have had that you didn't normally get through your qualifying process. In your opinion is a great one. In your opinion, is one I like to use for in your opinion, does testing the market make sense before we list the home?
So at the end of the day, the trial close is then going to bring you to say, should I close now, right? So let's assume that you ask them the question, how does the process sound? And they say something like, it sounds great. You're going to have a lot different action than if they say, it doesn't make sense to me, or it doesn't sound good. So let's assume that they say it doesn't sound good. You're going to drill into that. Well, what about it don't you like? Or what about it doesn't make sense to you? And then you're going to have to go back, and you're going to have to go back through the sales process and then bring them back and then trial close again. Assuming, though, that you trial close, how does the process sound? And they say, great, you would then say,
oh, I just need your permission to get started on the marketing, and we'll be all set to go.
Okay, there's words you don't want to use. Contracts, the more formalized you make things, the more likely somebody is to say, I need to think about it, right? The reality of the situation is, if somebody wants to back out of a listing agreement, we're going to let them, right? You don't want to tell them that, but that's the reality of the situation. So don't make it seem like they need 15 different attorneys to review the contract to make sure that it's okay, right? We're taking a baby step. It really is. It's not a big deal to list your house. It's not. The more you make it into a big deal, the more likely they are to say, I need to think about it, right? So again, what was the phrase?
I just need your permission to start the marketing.
That's it, right? Short, simple, it makes sense. In reality, they're really not committing to anything, right? Because if for whatever reason they decide they don't want to sell their house, they're not going to sell their house. If for whatever reason they decide that they don't like us, well, we're going to let them out of the listing agreement anyways. Again, you don't want to say those two things, but just to know in the back of your head.
Yep. And so when you're aware of the sales process and you're aware of tying down and trial closing, you're going to notice that you're not going to use one without the other. You're going to have to use them together. Okay? Tying down is really just trial closing along the way. That's all it is. You're just seeing how they feel, taking their temperature on different statements and different aspects of the sales process and your values and your benefits. So you have to use them together. So you have to practice them, though. I mean, that's just like when it comes down to it. This is something you have to practice. You have to try it. You have to be aware of it. You have to be out there thinking when you walk into that appointment, okay, my goal is to tie them down 5 times with my sales process. Maybe I actually gave my class a list of tie downs. So they should have them in their notebook. You just open them up. Here it is. There's the list. All right, let me ask these. Let's see if I can tie people down with these ones. You can phrase them and use them from the greet all the way to the close. So don't be afraid to use them. So when it comes to closing the deal, you really have to understand that it should be the easiest part. Everyone is just in this mindset that closing is the hardest part, and it's just an uphill battle, and they don't know what to do when they get there, and they might pitch it perfect, and they didn't get it signed. Closing is a step that just naturally happens after the sales process has been perfected. If you do everything that we've covered throughout, from the greet to the end, when you ask for their permission to market the house, I mean, I don't think I've ever asked that question and got a no, because I was ready to ask that question. When I ask that question, they say yes. And they say yes because I knew they were going to say yes. Because I did the sales process. I knew where they were going. I knew exactly what was going to happen when I asked it. Because I trial closed. Because I was on point with my tie downs. Because I got the rapport going. I knew it. So there's a couple different closing techniques. I'm going to have actually I'm probably going to do a single class on closing. Some techniques, but just to go over a few for you. Number one, you don't ask. If you don't ask, you don't get, right? So you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. Ask for the sale. Some people have a hard time with this. Other people call this the direct close. Does this sound good? What do you say? Do we have a deal, right? Things like that. You just you're at the point where you're feeling it's good. The trial closing went well, and you just kind of say, you know what? Let's just do this deal. And you ask for it. I'm a huge fan. I probably ask for the sale more than anybody, and it's very effective. People love it, and you end it, and you come at them with this right after a perfect trial close, and it's like, well, what do you say? Let's get started. Or you put out your hand for a handshake. I got that one. I never put my hand out for a handshake. I never do it because it's very scary. It's very scary to say, do we have a deal, and put your hand out there. But I knew I had it. Like I said, I would never ask the question unless I was going to get the deal. And of course he shook the hand and signed the contract because I was ready. I was confident. I knew he was going to sign because everything in that appointment went perfect. And based on the responses that I was getting, I knew that I was going to get the handshake. So always be closing, right? ABC, right? The cliche in sales. Always be closing. From the first phone conversation in Mojo to the initial appointment, maybe you're closing a second appointment. Maybe you're on an appointment and you're closing, the second decision maker's appointment. You're tying down to make closes throughout the way. You're trial closing on bigger items, but you're always closing. You're always closing on subjects, and like whether it's the appointment, the confirmation, anything. I mean, the whole process. Everything you're doing is getting them to agree. You're closing the whole time.
Closing is a natural ending to a good presentation. So if you have your
Yes.
presentation lined up and it's good, and you're hitting the sales process as you're explaining, it's a natural ending.
Exactly. It just happens.
Go there.
It just will happen. Closing just happens, okay? It's not something that you need. I mean, we're going to go over, you can ask for the close. A lot of people will say, well, they'll give you a fine. Maybe you trial close, you took their temperature a little wrong, and they give you an objection at the end. I always use feel, felt, found at the end. Very typical line. So I understand how you feel. Many clients of mine in the past have felt the same way. What they have found out is by testing the price or doing whatever the objection may be, and you handle it. But feel, felt, found is something powerful you guys can use at the end. If there was an objection late in the game, always go back on feel, felt, found. It's a great one to have. It's a classic line.
And also, has there ever been a time when you've been in a similar situation like this? Well, this time is just like that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you lead them where you want them to go.
You just lead them. You lead them the whole way. It should be calculated. You should be leading them the whole time. You should be in control of the seller appointment. So, real quick, sometimes just a quick benefit of, so what's your commission, right? Everyone says, well, what's your commission, right? So someone could say, what's your commission? You could say 6%. Oh, I love it too. I love it too.
Can't be afraid to say it.
No, you can't be afraid to say it. Throw it out there. Now, you could say 6% and let it hang, or you could say, is 6% fair to you? Right? Sometimes changing your statements into questions will allow this, put the seller at a comfort. So I know commission always comes up at the end when you're closing, and a lot of people kind of get engaged, but you could say it, 6%, let it hang, or 6%, is 6% fair to you? Sometimes people, and I know Meg had the same thing, sometimes people don't even ask you what it is. You've just absolutely mastered that appointment so well that they're not even asking you what the commission is. They don't even care. They want to work with you. So don't be afraid of putting 6% out there.
I just tell them what my fee is.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, tell them. Be confident when you say it. Don't say like 6%. You know what I mean? Like, 6%, but I can do 5. 6%, but is 4 okay? No, like just,
Just explain our value proposition.
Exactly.
Why that's my.
That and we get to 6% at the end. It's 6% because of what you just talked to them about, because of the detail, because of the value, because of everything that we do and why we're different is the reason we do it for 6%. Okay, the goal is to get the buyer to pay us both, right? I just tied everyone down. Okay, all right. So that's what you got to do. There's the rapport close. A lot of people can do this on their own. I know Phil's really good at this. Just closing deals on rapport. So you may go out there, and this happens, but it doesn't happen for everyone. But you can close a deal in rapport. Sometimes people will sign with you just because they like you at the end. Very rarely does it happen, but it can happen. But that's how powerful rapport is. That's why it's so key. That's why it's the foundation of sales. That's why it has to be done from the very beginning to the very end. Because if you just build rapport, you can close a deal with it. Was he just raising his hand? Did you have a question?
5 more. I was saying 5 more minutes. We get anxious people here.
I hear you. Yeah, I know. There's just so much. You can assume the sale after trial closing. So should I plan for photos this weekend or next weekend? Right? Great little question. You think you have it in the bag. Your trial closed. You don't want to do a direct close. Kind of assume it because you've already talked about photos.
If they're playing with numbers on commission, like, oh, well, I can get it this percentage, if they do, because of the presentation or whatever, because you missed something, could you follow up with, well, my fee is 3%, the question is, how much do you want to pay the buyer broker?
Yeah, it's a great way to explain it the other way. I've done that a bunch of times. Yeah, you say, well, my fee is 3%. We just need to figure out what to pay the buyer side. Okay. We can pay the buyer side 1% or 2%. But this is what happens when you pay 1% and 2%, and you leave it up to them to do it. Yeah, it's a great way to turn it around. Definitely. All right, would you agree that pre-marketing is what we need to do before we list it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
That's right. Okay. So let's see. Assuming the sale also is a technique where you combine you and the seller and kind of create like a we atmosphere. You know what I mean? Like when we sell your house, you're never gonna see those tenants again. When we sell your house, when we do this, when we do that, when you start talking to the seller, like you're encompassing them as like you're already working together. It's a mental thing. Now they're hearing it, they're agreeing with you, you're getting a feel for it, and it's a powerful technique. So assuming the sale is you got to do it. Besides asking for it, assume it. It's a little less of a directness, but have to do it, or at least try it. A lot of people give something for nothing. That's the 1% close. It's when you give an added benefit at the end to close the deal. Maybe you're trying to close them. Maybe they're not sold on 6%. So then you have to add, well, you know what? I'll take 1% off if I can find the buyer. Or I'll take 1% off. If I took 1% off right now, would you sign today? So that's something like if you have to do it to get the deal done, then do it. I actually was being walked out of a condo in Billerica this summer. He was literally walking me down the stairs, thanking me for coming, and I stopped at the door, probably back to the door because I knew what was going on, and I just said, listen, if I take 1% off, will you do it for me? Will we have a deal? And he was like, yes. And I was like, oh, perfect. And so, right to the table we went and signed him up and sold his condo. The T-chart close is a personal close. So the T-chart close is also called the Ben Franklin, something I've been using since I was 18 years old. So it's a simple pro and con chart. A lot of people like to see the benefits of what you're presenting. So sometimes we can make the benefits the 151 points of marketing, or if you want to make your own thing of the benefits of selling with us versus this or that, or pros and cons of investing, pros and cons of listing. Then you kind of had it there to show them. A lot of times if you're in an appointment without the second decision maker, this is vital because now, like Tom said, the person didn't retain half of it. Then 6 hours later, when their spouse gets home from dinner, for dinner, now you're expecting them to relay all the information that you did to help them close you. But if you had a T-chart of all the pros and cons or all the benefits that you were presenting in that, now when they have something to refer back to parrot your conversation they had, that's a much more powerful closing tool for them to use on the second decision maker than you just hoping they do a good job in explaining things. The urgency close works very well, or I call it the painful close. The urgency close or painful close is really usually more for acquisitions, I would say. I use it a lot. Not so much the retail side, but it works either way if you're digging for the right pain points. So sometimes people need the money. Sometimes they have a time restriction. They have to move. There's a sickness. Someone lost a job, divorce, job relocation. These are urgent matters. Okay? There's urgency there to move or sell their house. And so when there's urgency there, you can use it against them, right? You can use it to get them to sign today. Well, let's get started. So, where there's urgency. So if we can sell this house in the next 30 days, to get you the money you need, or if we sell your house in the next 30 days, you're going to be able to get to that job. So taking the sense of urgency and using it against them and saying, if we sign today, we're going to be able to, heal that pain that you have. And get it going. And we need to get started now. I'm always talking with a sense of urgency. Someone that needs to sell in 30 days, super urgent. Someone that needs to sell in July, I'm still building a sense of urgency about taking photos now to get it on March 1. So use urgency. The urgency close is really good, especially when people have a real urgency out there. So let me see. All right, so in the end, in order to master the sales process, you have to follow the sales process. In order to follow it, you got to learn it. In order to learn it, you got to practice it, study it. You got to come to class. So there's a lot of things we went over today. The pre-prep, the greet, presentation, qualifying, closing, qualifying questions, rapport building, tie downs, trial closings. There's even some more advanced techniques that we just absolutely had no time for today, and I haven't even brought into the class yet, so I'm excited to bring some advanced techniques in to those who have been practicing with me for a while. And don't forget to turn your objections from mountains right into hurdles, right? At first, they're something big and hard to overcome, but eventually they're going to be hurdles. There's going to be part of the process where you're just running through the sales process and you're just jumping over them on the way to the finish line. So
yeah, it's not enough to just kind of understand them at a really low level. We're in a pass-fail business. So when we go out there, we get a seller appointment. We're either getting it or not getting it. We're not half getting it, right? We don't just kind of make some money on every single one. If you're a 5 out of 10 on your presentation, a lot of times you're getting $0 for it, right? If you're a 10 out of 10, you're going to get the full amount most times. So it really is about practicing and understanding that whatever level you think you're at, you can get so much higher by practicing this stuff over and over and over again. So definitely check out as many of the classes as you can. Some of you are already in the classes. If you're not in the classes, you can sign up, get 2 free weeks out of it, and definitely check it out. So thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Tony,